I'm Jack. I'm the head of growth at BuildZoom. I'm here today talking with Jiyan Jack, BuildZoom's co-founder, about the professional side of the marketplace. BuildZoom differentiates itself from kind of competitors in the space by not necessarily being a full lead gen service. It's a little bit different. Would you mind diving into why BuildZoom isn't a lead gen service?
Yeah, so BuildZoom started as a lead gen service. Well, so we started by kind of selling this hybrid of impressions, profile impressions, and a certain amount of leads every month. And that's just because that was sort of the conventional, when we looked around the market and we looked at some comparables, that was sort of the conventional way, that was a conventional business model. So we employed that business model, and yet the issue was we had all this data, and we were trying to use this data to create sort of really relevant and meaningful matches. And what we found is, the most relevant matches, we'd go out to, the system would go and say, okay, for this owner doing this project in this area, here is the stack ranked list of GCs who are great for it, right? And so we go out to the first result on the list, and we'd say, hey, you have a project for you, and if you buy a subscription with BuildZoom, we'll actually let you access this project. You can connect with the client, and they'd say no, right? And so we'd go down that list, and we'd have just really a hell of a time finding someone who was at the top. And so by the time we found someone who was like, yeah, okay, I'll pay you money for this lead and other leads beyond it, we're kind of far down that list. And so what we realized is that the lead gen model is incentivized to basically connect the consumer with whomever on the supply side is willing to pay the most for the lead, not necessarily who's the best for the job. And I think that was what really kind of drove us to rethink the business model.
And what is the business model right now? How has that developed over time, and what is it, and why did you decide that, and what were kind of the pros to choosing that?
Yeah, so we talked to a lot of the folks who were really at the top of the list, and we kind of said, hey, what would it take to work with you, right? And what we found is that they didn't know us early on. We didn't have any brand recognition or anything like that, and many of them were willing to kind of try, right, and see how things went, and if there was a great outcome, they'd be willing to pay some fees, right? And so that was sort of the experiment we ran. We started working with what we considered to be sort of the ideal matches for these different projects, and sort of hitched our wagon to their success, which means that we went into kind of more of a pay for performance model, where they're essentially paying BuildZoom fees, but only once they've actually acquired a new contract, right? So they're not going out of pocket to pay us anything until they've actually seen a successful outcome. And so that's essentially the business model we transitioned into. And the reason was just because we wanted to work with really the most qualified general contractors.
I want to talk a little bit about how contractors feel about this. What types of contractors seem to be the most happy, and what leads to kind of a great partnership here?
I don't know that a lot of contractors realize that when our project consultant is actually talking to the owner, there's actually a step in the process called a showcase, right? Now, in the showcase, they're literally bringing up that contractor's background. They're showing they're talking about the contractor's projects that are really relevant to the owner, and how that contractor sort of fulfills the requirements that the owner has stated. They're essentially selling the contractor to the owner, and they're able to do that. What actually helps their ability to do that is, first of all, as a platform, we're compiling all the information over time, so it's not like they have to do a bunch of research all the time. And, the data that we're able to compile from all the building departments, makes it easy for us to say, hey, look, this contractor has actually done a lot of projects that are really similar to the one you've worked on, and they're in the same jurisdiction, right? So they're going to be familiar with the building code. But I don't know if a lot of contractors realize that our team of project consultants are, essentially selling their company and their brand full time to owners. So maybe we should increase the fees, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, this goes back to what you were saying about, BuildZoom having the same incentives as the contractor, right? It's like the contractor wants to get hired for this project, and BuildZoom wants the contractor to get hired for this project. And so BuildZoom's going to do things to help sell the contractor, to the homeowner, and really present them in a way that makes them seem kind of like a great fit, and shows off why they're a good fit.
Some people may hear the word sell to the owner and think, oh, like this. We're actually sort of, it is a sale of sorts, but what we're selling involves us looking at very specific data points, right? Like what are the marquee projects this contractor's worked on? How long have they been in business, right? What are the projects they've worked on that are relevant and close to your project? So they're, just to clarify, they're not going and saying, hey, this guy's the best, they're going to get it done under budget and faster than the timeline stipulates.
It's just a professional presentation of facts that are relevant.
That's good.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think another part that I've noticed working at BuildZoom is how, that's similar to this vein, is how the project consultants will really help be a mediator between the two parties, right? And make sure that there's no miscommunication, and make sure everyone's on the same page, and kind of help progress the project forward, which is beneficial to everyone, right? That's what the property owner wants and the contractor wants. Right. So I think that's another thing that kind of BuildZoom's business model has led to, right? Is this additional interaction that the project consultants do.
Yeah, actually that's another great point. Like in our system, we sort of have modeled out this idea of, an introduction is made, what is the next step? Well, if the showcase is successful and the owner says, yeah, this business looks like a really great fit, let's connect. Well, the next step is they connect, and there's sort of a walkthrough of the job site, but also an opportunity for them to kind of connect with one another, right? And then we go through a structured bidding process all the way to contract, right? And so this is a great point because, in actually the conversation we had last week, we talked about sort of how there's not always great operating standards in the contracting industry. And this is a great example of how we have actually structured a process that often creates a lot of friction, right? We hear a lot of the time off BuildZoom where owners like, hey, I'm so frustrated. I came to BuildZoom because I keep meeting with contractors and none of them will bid on the project. We'll kind of meet and then I don't hear from them again. And sometimes maybe that's because it's not a good project and the contractor just doesn't want to say, hey, this isn't a project I want to take on. Sometimes it's just because they get busy and they forget, right? But by structuring it through the platform, and the project consultant plays an important role, right? By kind of keeping an eye on things, we're able to kind of create some standards here even in this pre-construction, even in this procurement process.
That first problem, it sounds like BuildZoom kind of helps solve also by doing that early qualification, right? And speaking with the property owner about their project, learning if it's actually a serious project before they, pass it off. And if it's not ready, maybe BuildZoom kind of helps work with the property owner until it is ready to meet a contractor.
Yeah, that's another great point, because our first point of contact with the owner is what we call discovery. And the whole purpose of discovery is to qualify the owner to see if we'd even, they're ready, they're in a position where we're going to connect them to contractor, right? Like if they're tire kicking, we aren't really, we're not going to waste the time of our best contractors, or we're going to try not to do that, right? And so in discovery, we're going through a structured process here we're really trying to ascertain, at what stage in the process are they? Are they totally in ideation? And so, they haven't even thought about like financing, feasibility, constructability, or have they do they have their construction plans? Do they have approval? And are they really ready for us to bid the work out? And that is exactly the kind of thing we need to figure out when we conduct this discovery call, so we can kind of plot the next steps for that owner. The last thing we want is to take sort of an unqualified owner, right, and connect them with like a real blue chip general contractor who has like a backlog of clients already that they're trying to handle. And so, we're doing a lot that that's actually for the benefit of the contractor.
In terms of the benefit of the contractor, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot that BuildZoom does, and a part of that is because of how locked the BuildZoom the model is with the contractor's success. But like, will you talk a little bit about how happy contractors are with the platform, and maybe like what they're happy with, as well as maybe who is happy, like who are the contractors that kind of succeed the most or love BuildZoom the most?
Yeah. So this is actually, I think this is an important distinction, because like there's a belief that, tech companies just want to have like this, this army of happy customers. And in SaaS, right? So if you're selling software, it's a lot easier to kind of strive for like 100% for an NPS of 80, right? 100% happy customers, 0% churn. In marketplaces, that's just not the case, right? Because the whole idea here is we're putting standards in place across the board through the platform, and if there's not sort of optimal or even like just baseline good behavior, then there's kind of negative consequences. But it's not like any individual making a subjective evaluation. We're creating a platform, setting the terms of engagement, explaining those things. So we'll say something like, in the system, we'll actually have a score, like a responsiveness score, when the owner is actually asking a question, right? Are they actually responding consistently? Pretty simple, right? We're just saying, if the owner is asking a question, respond. And if they don't, they kind of get dinged. So I think that those who just don't exhibit what, like, sort of a baseline of professionalism, their score gets dinged. They don't get access to future opportunities, and they can kind of be a little frustrated by that at times. I think that businesses that really conduct themselves with high levels of professionalism, through sort of in their interactions with the client, but also in the fulfillment of the project, they love it, right? Because we're able to identify that in a systematic fashion, and reward them in a systematic fashion. And again, it's not any individual making this decision. It's actually a marketplace platform that's making this decision. So I think great actors really love it, and probably subpar actors don't really love it. But that's okay.
I love this idea of bad contractors might dislike BuildZoom, but good contractors like BuildZoom.
I'm hesitant to use like bad or good necessarily.
Sure.
Sure. Right. There is also, by the way, I think that the largest segment of this population is actually just sort of in this gray area. Like, of course, the contracting industry doesn't have like some rule book for how to actually go and work with the client, how to execute projects, right? And it's, again, we talked last time about how complicated it is. A lot of them are actually really earnest, hardworking folks who, are entrepreneurial by nature and really good at what they do, but they're trying to figure out how to do client relations, how to engage in project management, right? How to do finance and accounting, and doing it all is really challenging. And so I think a lot of those folks, we see a huge opportunity to help those folks by instituting terms of engagement and actually teaching them about things like the importance of communicating effectively and with minimal latency, right? About when you enter a bidding process, inputting a bid, right? And following through. And so there's a huge segment of the population that we have a really great opportunity to affect in a positive way, and I think that's really part of what makes this kind of exciting.
Very cool. Another thing I'd like to add here that I've seen and I'm kind of hearing a little bit in what you're saying is I've noticed that contractors that are really looking to grow their business and expand seem to do really well on BuildZoom and are able to use BuildZoom to take advantage of that. And in addition to that, the contractors that want to focus on building and being a contractor and kind of a craftsman to do the work to build love BuildZoom because we take away all of the sales, marketing, back office work or limit that a little bit so they can focus more on just the construction side, which is what a lot of them got into it for. So I've seen that contractors that are interested in those two things tend to kind of really thrive at BuildZoom.
Yeah, I think I think that's right, and I think we haven't actually done sort of methodologically sound analysis here, but a lot of it's anecdotal. But we've had so many anecdotes, it kind of feels legit. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's like a persona of sort of contractor that's really hungry for growth. For just seeing sort of their business. They run a great business. They know how to deal with the client. They know how to fulfill, and they really love it because the system rewards them with more opportunities, and there's a certain predictability that allows them to make investments in their business because they know that those opportunities will be there to sort of fuel their growth. And I also think that there is like a persona. Maybe it's sort of like early adopter, but I think there may be a generational skew here where I think there's just a persona contractor that's willing to actually work with a platform, right? And vice versa. There is a persona contractor that's kind of a bit more old school and is always going to be just word of mouth driven, right? So that's probably another distinction that's worth just noting.
I'd imagine there's also this kind of matching problem, right? Where if somebody comes to a contractor with a project that they're, let's say, like medium excited about, they might not say yes or say I'm booked or can't make time for it, right? But if you come to a contractor with like their dream project, they might be more willing to take it on and actually be able to create time to take it on. So I'd imagine by BuildZoom doing this like upfront work of understanding what the project is and also kind of really using the data they have to do matching, they get to have more of those kind of perfect match experiences, and therefore contractors are more likely to say yes on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like busy is sort of this relative thing, right? Like I just think about our business. If somebody wanted to come and do a strategic partnership, with our business, right? But they were kind of small and they didn't have sort of like a well-articulated vision, and we were kind of like, hey, I don't really know what you guys do, and I don't know how we would work together, and they don't know either. It's just easy to say, oh, we're kind of slammed right now, but like let's circle back up in a quarter or two, right? Where if one of the big box stores comes over, right, and it's like, hey, we need you to kind of be the tip of the spear in this new strategic initiative that we're going to pump billions of dollars into, right? Say, oh yeah, we have some time to talk this quarter. We can kind of go and look at that. And that's a hyperbole, but I that's a great point. Like if the opportunity is really well qualified and fits right into the wheelhouse, right? And they don't see this as just this investment of time with this dubious outcome, but they're like, wow, that actually fits. This whole concept of busy may come into may be questioned, right? Maybe they're not as busy as they thought.